Alright, I thought I'd do just a quick review of these tents that I've got. The first three are two-person tent, even though the first one says it's three-person tent. It's really just a two-person tent. And then the last three are solo tents. Even though the middle one says it's two-person tent, it's really just a one-person tent, what I call a 1 plus some gear. This one here is an old Sierra design. It's a 4-season tent. They call it an Alpha CD. You can take some poles off it to take a little bit of weight off of it and make it into a 3-season tent, but it doesn't take that much. And this is a real heavy tent. It's about 9 pounds or 10 pounds with the footprint, but it is a big bulletproof tent. It's got a huge vegetable on it. More than once my wife and I have been stuck in a rainstorm and we've had 2 packs, cook gear, boots in this. And then what we would do if we needed to exit, we would exit out this end here. It has an exit on both ends. This tent I'm actually putting on eBay. I'm going to sell it because no more than what my wife and I goes. We just don't need a tent like that, and we don't go in any bad weather when she goes. The next tent, this one here I bought brand new a couple of years ago. It was a Spitfire, Eureka Spitfire 2. And it's a 2-person tent, and it's actually a 2-person tent. That is a 2-person tent. You can really get 2 people in there. In fact, you put 2 people and a little dog. We have a little dog that we take with us when my wife and I go. My biggest complaint with this is there's no vegetable. I mean, it just comes right down on the side. The fly comes right down on the sides. And you can see that over here. That's the only reason I'm selling it. I'm also putting this one on eBay. And that's the reason I'm selling it, is because of that. It's a sub 5-pound tent. And for my purposes, that works great because we don't go very far when my wife and I go together. We just usually under 5 miles. So if I carry a heavy pack, that's not a big deal. So what we do use is this one right here. It's a 6-moon design Lunar Duo. It's not self-standing at all. You have to have stakes. This one here, you have to have stakes. You have to stake the front and the back out. But this one here is completely self-standing with the exception of the vegetable. Of course, they all have to stake out that. So this one here, and you can see the size of the vegetable. That's a 52-liter pack in there. And you can see the size of the tent itself is, when my wife and I go, we put 2 pads, 220 by 72 pads, and we got enough room between us to put a little dog. She's only like a 13-pound dog. It does allow you to, right here, you can pull this out on the foot end. Usually what I use here, I bring a little dog leash, and I'll use that to pull that out. And then again over here, it's got 2 side entries, which, you know, I have fell in love with side entries. The ones on the end, I'll tell you, just crawling in and out of them can really be a pain. And then here's one where I've got this where you can pull out on it. It's really a nice tent. Plenty of room, not claustrophobic at all. I don't know what the height of it is. It's probably 45, 47 inches. And it's, you know, the website says the tent itself is 57 ounces. And then, you know, by the time you add stakes and stuff like that, you're probably looking at a 5-pound tent. But again, when my wife and I go, we don't go very far. So carrying a 35-pound pack is just not a big deal. Now, between this one and this one, we bought a Big Agnes Fly Creek UL3. Well, it was an expensive tent and we never went, so at that time, so I went ahead and traded it for a Big Agnes Fly Creek Platinum 1. I don't have that tent anymore either. I sold it, I sold it because it was just too small for me. I'd sit up, my head would hit the top of the tent, my shoulders would hit the sides, And it's what I call a coffin style tent, and that's just not my thing. It just was way too small for me. So the next tent I bought for solo was this Lunar Solo 6 Moon Design Lunar Solo. It's like this one here, except for it's the solo version of it. And I bought it, and I didn't really think I'd like it, but since the more I used it, the more I do like it. It is a single wall tent, just like the Lunar Duo. And the big secret to that, of course, is ventilation. And you just open it up. And you can see this thing is big enough I use it for when me and my little dog go. It's big enough for 2 people, or 1 person and a small dog. It's got a decent brush pull on it. Enough for my 52-liter pack to sit in there nice and comfortable. But the big thing is ventilation. You want to make sure you keep the door open if at all possible, if it's not raining out. And then it's got a little pull thing here where you can, give yourself a little bit more room inside. And this is the back side of it. And I was real concerned about getting condensation in it, which if you leave the door open, or don't leave the door open, you will get condensation. Excuse me. But I'll also usually take something and kind of prop these up. Depends on how much wind there is. Sometimes there's so much wind, I'll take stuff and kind of stack it around there, keep the wind out. But I really like this tent now, and the more I use it, and it's a pre-2012 one, so it's not the one with all the updates. But it works great, and it's pretty light stakes and guy lines and line locks and everything all together is right at just a scotch under 28 ounces. So that's not a bad weight for a solo, and it's sill. And it's a thick enough sill that it doesn't wet out real quick. Alright. The next tent, this is a Fly Creek UL2. Now I told you I had a Platinum 1 and a UL3. Well, the Platinum 1 was just too small. Now they say this is a 2-person tent. There's no way to get 2 people in here. This is what I call a 1 plus some gear, plus a little dog. I mainly bought this for when, like I'm going to the canyon, Grand Canyon, or someplace where a semi-freestanding tent, they also call it a freestanding tent, it's not. Where I need a semi-freestanding tent. The main thing that you got to stake out here is the back corners. And then it helps a lot if you can put these guidelines in, because what that does, that pulls out that center part. Otherwise it kind of collapses down in on you. I mean, it's tolerable, but much better to have it with it than without it. The vegetable is pretty small. That's kind of another reason to have one that you can bring your pack in with you if you need to, rather than put it outside. This is big enough for a pair of boots. Or the other downside to this is you can see that if rain comes in and you open this up and you're trying to get in, it's going to hit that screen. Now basically what I do is I just don't open it up all the way. And if I get a few drops in, I'm really not too worried about it. It's really never been an issue. A lot of people complain about it, but like I said, a few drops isn't going to hurt anything. But it is a lightweight tent. I think it's 2 pounds 5 or 6 ounces if you get rid of those heavy stakes and get some shepherd hook type stakes. So it's for what it is, it's a fairly light tent. And I know in that UL, or in that Platinum 1, I was there with an all-night rain. And it was like, it started at 9:30 at night, and about 8 o'clock the next morning it started wetting out. So I'm hoping, I haven't been in the rain in this one, but I'm sure it will probably do just as well, because the tarp on this one seems to be a little bit thicker, even though it's real thin. It does seem to be a little bit thicker, the fly on it. All right, the next one, this is 6 Moon Design Skyscrape X. The X meaning that it's Cuban. This tent here weighs just under 20 ounces with stakes and guidelines and ground cloth and the whole works. I like using a ground cloth. I bring one anyway because if I can cowboy camp, I'll cowboy camp, and I use the ground cloth for that. So I just bring one anyway, so I go ahead and throw it up underneath there. I know people say you don't need it, but since I'm bringing it, I'll go ahead and use it. It is a real good tent. It's actually my go-to tent. I've used it especially if I'm going to be hiking a lot of miles, such as like the John Muir or the Grand Canyon, where you're going to be doing a lot of ascending. But it's not without its problems. The biggest problem is how high the vegetables comes up. You can see how high that is from the ground. And the bathtub floor is not very big. And what happens is, especially if you get like a thunderstorm, is you go to push on this, the wind pushes on this, and you can see how it goes above the screen. Well, what I've done, I did a little bit of an adapter or modification to it. First thing I'll do is I'll lower the poles to where this will actually come down lower. And then I'll go ahead and I'll stake this out to keep the wind from blowing it in. Seems to work pretty good that way. I haven't been in a real toad choker yet, but one of these days I'm sure that's going to happen. We'll see how it does. And plus you can do things like put your pack or on the side where the wind's blowing and that sort of stuff. So, and again, this is 6 Moon Design Skyscrape X. I also have a guideline here, pull up on the foot end of it. It's just a little bit bigger than a pad. You got enough room in there, put your spare clothes and stuff like that. It's not wall-to-wall pad, but it's pretty close. And the vegetables are pretty small, so you can't. You can't really put a pack. I do, but it's half of it's exposed outside of it. And I usually just put I carry a compact trash liner inside of it, and I just go ahead and put it on the outside of it to kind of keep it waterproof. Mainly keep the dew off it and things like that. So anyway, that's just a quick show of some of the tents of what's in what I call my quiver. You guys have a great day. Thanks for watching.